You ever worry about silly things like a basketball game? Isn't it amazing what people worry about? Who's going to win? Is my team going to win? Am I going to have the strength to win? Teams go in the locker room up or down by 1 point, and the coach acts like life is on the line, worrying about the end of the game. I remember something Jesus said. He said, will worrying even add any extra time to your life? He said, don't worry about what you eat or what you drink or the clothes you wear. He could have just as easily said, don't worry about a basketball game. Because you see why? We have somebody on our team. They carry us. I remember when I played for the Chicago Bulls. Had Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. I never worried about taking the last shot. I had somebody on my team who could handle the pressure, so I didn't worry about it. We'd get in the huddle, just a few seconds left. Coach would say, Thomas, you want to take the last shot? I'd say, that's what you want, Coach. I'm not worried about it. Because see, I got Jordan and Pippen, those guys, they'll carry me through. The word worry in the Greek is the two words combined together. It means having a divided mind. That's what happens when you worry. Jesus said, cast all your care on him, because he cares for you. And that's why I don't worry. That's why I didn't worry when I played for the Bulls. I just cast all my care on Jordan. If he wasn't available, if he was covered, I'd cast all my care on Pippen. But I didn't have a divided mind about it. I knew we'd win. You know why we'd win? Because somebody was carrying me. Why are you worrying in life? Cast all your care on him. He cares for you. He'll see you through. That's it.
Our Sweet 16 bracket up here, we've been processing through. Kind of the way we got to this point was thinking through some of the challenges in all of our lives, knowing that this is March Madness. I'm a big basketball fan and enjoying this season of the holiday season called March Madness. And so as you process through, we're kind of arriving at the Final Four. But before I go there, how many of you, your bracket has already blown up? All right, a few of you. How many of you have the sleeper, the Kentucky Wildcats winning it all? All right. Anybody got somebody other than Kentucky winning it? Well, I hope you are having fun. I've heard some great comments from you about how God's using this series in your life. We are processing through this portion, and what we did was we began to process through what would be the top kind of 4 things we might process. And so we started with week number 1 talking about this issue of pride, something that impacts all of us. You might say it this way: I know I'm number 1. There's nothing you can do about it. And so sometimes that's kind of the attitude that we've got. And pride reaches into all of our lives, and it's something we all have to deal with, and we process through what that would look like. Well, in week number 2 of this series, we talked about another Final Four challenge in our life, and it was gossip. How gossip works its way into our life. Matter of fact, we kind of went back into this Elite 8, and what we discovered was gossip really was a result of a judgmental spirit, or I might just put down here, a heart condition. See, what happens is we get inside of our spirit, in our heart, and we become critical or negative about something, and it manifests itself in our tongue, the way we speak. So you'll remember when we were talking about this, when you go to the doctor typically will take a little wooden stick, put it in your mouth, because he wants to examine what's on your tongue is an indicator of what's going on the inside. Same as here. An indicator of what's going on in the heart manifests itself in what we talk about, how we speak of one another. And we used 3 different questions for us to kind of process through. Is what I'm going to say kind? Is it going to be helpful to the person? And is it true? And when we get to this point that we've got a judgmental spirit of another individual, it will always come out in gossip. And it's something that we have to battle through. It's something that we're challenged with. And so what we've done is identify 2 of our top top 4 things that are challenges. Now, for basketball language, this might be a number 1 seed, this might be a number 1 seed, but then you start getting to these others, and if you're familiar with March Madness, there's always a sleeper team that comes from maybe a 5 seed or a 6 seed or a 7 seed. And so today, I want to talk about one of those that I think might be a sleeper, because we probably could come pretty close to what are those really top 4 things in our life, but I want to talk about a sleeper one today, one that maybe goes under the radar, one that when you participate in this, it literally sucks the life out of you. And so we're going to talk about this issue of worry today. Think about in your life, in my life, in all of our lives, this particular issue, don't underestimate it because it's got game. Worry is one of these issues that will cause you to lose sleep. It is something that will eat away at your stomach. You will physically become sick over the things that we worry about. It will make our joints, our muscles ache. And Jesus said, can all of your worries add a single moment to your life? And when Jesus says these words in Matthew chapter 6 at the Sermon on the Hillside, He's letting the disciples and all that are in attendance know, is there anything you can do about worry? Is it going to add anything at a single moment to your life? And yet, worry consumes us. And so, part of our Final 4 is going to be this topic of worry. So we're going to put it up here on our Final 4, and we filled in our bracket with 3 of our Final 4. So let's talk about worry today. Worry, something that might happen in our lives, something that could possibly take place, but it will literally exhaust our energy thinking about it. So let me ask you this question. What is it that's in your life right now that is draining you emotionally? You're thinking about that thing or that person, that episode, that scenario that's draining the life out of you, and you worry about it. You've actually stressed over it. It's captured your emotions. It captures your thoughts. And although it may be something small to begin with, it's now escalated into something much bigger. Well, worry is one of these issues in all of our lives as a believer that will literally consume us. When I was putting all of this together, thinking about this, I actually had worry back here with fear. And if you'll remember from last week, I had fear in the Sweet 16 bracket. And I was processing through how fear is a generator of a judgmental spirit. Judgmental spirit then manifests itself in gossip. And I was really toying with the idea of how do we get to this, because the more I thought about worry, the more I realized this really does capture the heart of many believers. And it doesn't have to be that way. So today, here's what I want to do. I'm going to give you 3 simple words that I want you to carry with you all week long. 3 simple words. And if you'll write them down on a piece of paper, put them in your pocket, you'll put them on your mirror at home, you'll put them on the dash of your car. 3 simple words that will solve your worry. Is that fair enough? Yeah. Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand or show, hoop and holler at me, but I want you to just answer internally. Do you have something you're worried about? Is there something that's generating some anxiety, some stress, some worry in your life? Then these 3 words from the lips of Jesus Himself have the ability to capture this concept of worry and do away with it. Here they are. You ready? Peace, be still. 3 words. Say that with me on 3. 1, 2, 3. Peace, be still. Think about it. We've had an incredible time of worship. This choir tune today, just spectacular. I love this choir tune as we process through the things we believe in. See, we sing and we say we believe in these things, and yet we turn around and we worry. When Jesus said, can worry even add a moment to your life? And Jesus said, peace, be still. Where does this come from? Because storms are going to roll into all of our lives. Every one of us in this room, regardless of age, are going to experience a storm. Now listen, you may be in a storm right now. You may be sitting here, you've come to church today in hopes to get some relief from the storm. Some of you have just come out of a storm and it was difficult, brutal. Some of you, you can see the clouds forming on the horizon and you know that the storm is potential. We all are going to walk through storms in life. Sometimes we're going to walk together through some of those storms, and sometimes you're going to have that walk by yourself. It's just going to be you and God. So in those moments that you hear those things, and there's no siren going off to warn you, there's no cable channel to flip to that gives you the warning signs, the storm is coming. There's not a storm Doppler radar for the storms of life. You can't turn on West News and the early morning says, hey, just heads up, today there's going to be an accident in your life. Just be ready. Doesn't happen that way, does it? The storms of life move in like a big, bad bully. They capture our attention. They hurt. They're painful. We all process it in different ways when we hear news like, you've got cancer. Man, the storm cloud has rolled in. When we hear news like, he had a heart attack, that storm has rolled in. When you hear, but it was just an accident. Or, hey, I'm sorry. Thank you for your service to our organization, but because of the economy, we got to cut back, and you leave without a job that day. The storm of life has hit your home when you're out of employment. Foreclosure notice shows up on your doorstep, and you've worked hard that day and come home to see it tacked to the front of your door. Or you open up the mailbox and you get some kind of devastating news financially, and the storm has rolled into your home. Storms are going to hit all of us. We can panic. We can get angry. We can get a judgmental spirit and gossip and say things that just are mean and hurtful. We can get pride and say, you know what? I don't need any help here. I don't even need God's help. We all process it different ways. We might isolate ourselves. Some people are going to run. Some people are going to turn to a drug. I mean, people are going to deal with stress and worry and anxiety in many different ways. And today here at South Point, I want you to hear clearly as you leave this place, 3 words can change your life. Peace. Be still. It comes from Mark chapter 4. Mark chapter 4, Jesus is speaking to a very large crowd. And the day has come to an end, and it's time that His disciples say to Him, hey, let's get some of our buddies together. Everybody get your boats prepared. Nighttime's coming. We need to go from this side of the lake to the other side of the lake. And if you've ever been to the Sea of Galilee on the banks of the Tiberias, city of Tiberias, you know kind of what that's like. And if you've processed just a year ago, a number of you were with me, and we processed what that was like. Think in terms of, here's Jesus in the boat with all of His friends. There's a few boats with them. And they crawl into these boats after a long day of teaching. They're going to prepare for the next day. And Jesus says, hey, let's go to the other side. Mark chapter 4, I want you to look at the story where peace be still comes into play. Here's how it plays out. Starting in verse number 35, that day when evening came, Jesus said to His disciples, hey, let's go over to the other side. Talking about from one side of the sea to the other side. Leaving the crowd behind, they took Him along just as He was in the boat. There were also other boats with Him, and a furious squall came up. The waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Interesting word there. My mom and dad are visiting today, and yesterday my mom made a comment to us at the house about they just had gone on a cruise, and they were sharing some of the stories from their cruise. And one of the things she said is you guys were eating dinner one night, and you look out the window and you could see the waves crashing along the side of the boat. And in your mind, you're thinking, boy, we're really high up. How high are those waves? And you came to find out they were about 11-foot squalls. rocking this cruise ship. Now, I don't know that these were 11-foot squalls on the Sea of Galilee, but they were to the magnitude that water was flooding over the boat. These guys were fearful of sinking. And it's there in the midst of this that Jesus throws out these famous words. Now, I'm not sure when you are at your least cool moment of life, but I can tell you one of my least cool moments in life is if you wake me up in the middle of a sleep. So if I'm in the middle of a sleep, Darlene will know this, if I'm in the middle of a sleep, this is kind of what it looks like. If I'm good in sound asleep, and all of a sudden I'm awakened to an alert. I mean, it's like, hey, get up right now. I'm like this, where do I need to go? What needs to happen? I'm like out of my mind. My eyes are glazed over, my hair's in shambles, and I'm like, where's the gun? What am I going to take care of? I don't know how you process those kinds of things, but what we know about this passage from Mark chapter 4 is, where was Jesus? He was asleep in the boat. Look at verse number 38. Verse number 38 says Jesus was in the back of the boat, the stern of the boat, and he's sleeping on a cushion. I mean, you got this incredible raging storm. We all are going to experience some raging storms. And here Jesus is in the back of the boat sleeping. The disciples wake him up. Teacher, don't you care if we drown? Master, we got a storm out here. The water's crashing over. It's about to take over our boat. We're going down. We're going to drown. You need to wake up. I wonder if you have ever been in a spot in life where the storm was so significant, you too turned and yelled at God. God, how could you do this to me? God, I have served you faithfully. How can this happen in my life? God, don't you care about me? Don't you care about my family? God gives us a good reminder. Those moments that we want to lash out verbally at God and blame God for a situation in our life. Psalmist says this in Psalm 121. He says, He will not let you stumble. The one who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel never slumbers or sleeps. The Lord Himself watches over you, with an exclamation. The Lord stands beside you as a protective shade. Listen, when you come into the storms of life, please know you have God walking through that storm with you. And yet, so often we still worry. Just like the disciples in the boat, who became so worried, so panicked in the situation, in the storm of life. They were worried they might drown. Maybe you feel like you're drowning right now. Maybe you feel like you're on the edge of drowning. I want to challenge you and encourage you today. Jesus is with you. Matter of fact, I love His response. Jesus' response when the disciples alertly and abruptly awaken Him in the back of the boat. He gets up and He rebukes the wind and said to the waves, "Peace, be still." And the wind died down and it was completely calm. When the storms blow into your life and you begin to worry, choose peace. See, peace is what Jesus Christ offers. For all of us that are here, those watching by way of internet today, we have the ability to make a choice in how we're going to respond to the storms crashing in on our lives. Will we respond in anger and in panic and in criticism? Or will we respond in a way that says, peace? Jesus is with me. Matter of fact, Jesus said in John chapter 14 regarding peace, He said Himself, "Peace I leave you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." Why? Because the world defines peace this way. They say it's the absence of conflict. See, that's how the world wants to define peace. You might have a coworker that defines peace that way. You may have a family member that defines peace that way. The world wants to define it that peace is just simply an absence of conflict. But that's not at all how Jesus defined peace. He defined peace this way, that He is peace in the midst of the storm. Boy, and that becomes such a challenge for us. As Jesus is talking with the disciples on the mountainside, the famous Sermon on the Mountain, Sermon on the Hillside from Matthew chapter 6, which we opened the message with, there's another interesting thing that takes place. And you can kind of visualize, if you've ever been to Israel, this really enormous mountain that looks over the sea. It's a beautiful, beautiful landscaped area. Jesus is there teaching, and He says something remarkable. As a group of birds fly by. So there's a group of birds, He's in the middle of teaching, a group of birds fly by. Watch what He says in verse 25 of Matthew chapter 6. I tell you, do not worry about your life. What you'll eat or drink, or your body, what you'll wear. Is not life more important than food? And the body more important than clothes? Look at the birds in the air. Jesus, look at the birds flying over top. Guys, pause for a moment. Just look. There they go. Look at those birds. They don't sow or reap. The birds are not working hard. The birds are not in a panic mode. They don't sow and reap. They don't store away in barns. And yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to his life? Literally, Jesus is saying to His friends and the people listening, look, those birds instinctively know that the Creator will provide for them. How much more? If the Creator's going to provide for them, they're not going down to the local market in a panic at the price of worms today. They literally they have no care in the world, and as they fly through the sky, Jesus says, look at them. They don't have a concern because they know instinctively the Creator will provide, and yet you and I live making ourselves sick and anxious over worry. Have we forgotten that He is with you in the storm and He will meet you at your point of need? How much more, if He cares for the birds and He's going to provide for them, how much more will He do for you? This past week, Dayla and I were driving from our home over here to the church. We were out on 48, and we're driving, and we were in the little car. She was in the passenger seat. And as we drive up, there was this very large dead animal in the middle of the road. And somebody had, clipped this thing and left it sitting in the middle of the road. And as we go by, she kind of gave one of these looks. Oh, like, that's really gross. You ever seen one of those? I mean, it was pretty disgusting. Looked pretty fresh too. and as we drive by, and I made the comment, this was my response. Boy, the birds are going to have a nice meal today. I just tried to put the positive spin on it. The birds are going to have this really nice meal. We didn't go very far. It couldn't have been 50 yards more, and there's another large, meaty carcass. And my reply was, man, it's going to be like a buffet today for the birds. Now, I got to tell you, I knew what I was preaching on today with worry, and I knew the illustration of Jesus on the mountain talking about the birds flying by. There's not a care in the world. But can I use that simple illustration to drive home a really deep, rich theological truth to you? Those birds out on 48 in the Yalaha area, they didn't know where their next meal was coming from. But God just takes care of them. You might be worried about your next meal. You might be worried about something in life. But God says to you today, if you came for no other reason than this, God says to you today, it's okay. I'm with you. I got it. Just trust me. Just trust me. I'm in the storm with you. You might think I'm asleep on the back couch. You might think I've got my head down on the cushion, but please know I'm with you. And I got it. Peace. Be still. I know in this room and watching by way of internet, some of you have just come through a difficult storm of life. Some of you are just now in the middle of one, and some are about to enter one. Peace. Be still. What good does it do to worry? What good does it to put ourselves in a position where we get so anxious, so sick to our stomachs, that we're worried about what's going to happen next? See, the boat's going to rock. The water's going to crash over the sides and fill it up. The water will rise in your life storm. The storm is going to rage. But in the middle of the storm, you can have peace. The doctor's report is going to come. The news will be delivered. The economy is going to dip again. That person is going to disappoint you. And in the middle of that storm, you can have peace. Jesus said in John chapter 16, I've told you these things. He's talking about peace. I'm telling you all about peace. Listen to me, my dear children, Jesus says. I've told you these things so that in me, talking about Himself, you may have peace. Why? Because in this world, you will have trouble. But take heart, I've overcome the world. Isn't that a good word from Jesus? In the midst of the storms of life, you can know Jesus is telling us He is with us. Matter of fact, out of all the commands in the New Testament, 3 times more than any other command in the New Testament, it is addressed either by Jesus or one of the apostles that we are to not be anxious, not to worry, not to be stressed over situations. Why? Because Jesus is in the midst of it with us. What does it mean to us that when He says, peace, be still, listen, you can know He is aware of you, He is with you, and you can rely on Him. Our response to worry is one of trust in Jesus. Our response to anxiety and stress and the worries and the cares and the storms of life really come down to a faith issue. So today, I want to say to our church, peace. Be still.